Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. The Leadership Council of Southwestern Illinois has been an economic development organization for Madison and St. Clair Counties in Illinois since 1983. Their mission is to attract and retain jobs, stimulate capital investment, and promote economic development. Late in 2014, the Leadership Council and St. Louis Regional Chamber announced the launch of the St. Louis Gateway. St. Louis Gateway is an initiative which creates an identity for the St. Louis region as a multimodal transportation hub. The objective is to attract businesses to Metro St. Louis area which seek to locate where they can take advantage of the expanding multimodal transportation infrastructure and have easy access to about 30% of the U.S. population, which is within 500-mile radius. That access is available through 6 Class 1 rail lines, 4 major interstates, 3 airports, several pipelines, and the Mississippi's most northern ice-free lock and port. Our guest today is Mark Harms, President of SCI Engineering and Chairman of the Leadership Council's Southwestern Illinois Transportation Enhancement Initiative. He's here today to discuss why Metro St. Louis should be developed into a regional cargo distribution hub. Mark Harms, welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
So I just said a whole mouthful of things right there. First of all, what is multimodal? I know, but we need to explain this to the audience so they know what it is that we're trying to say here.
Multimodal is just that. It's the combination of modes of transportation for moving, in this case, freight and other durable goods through the area.
What would be an example of this, of these various modes?
You would be looking at rail, water or barge traffic, really looking at truck traffic,
airplanes,
any way that we can move product from rail to water, water to truck, and like that. So it's even, like you said, cargo planes are also one mode of transportation that we would consider part of multimodal.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been involved in this program, trying to attract businesses to St. Louis?
Well, going back in your introduction, nailed it. Going back to in 2014, actually 2013, the Leadership Council transformed the Transportation Committee, which was a long-standing committee of the Leadership Council, primarily focused on roads and bridges. That did a fantastic job for us in advocating for capital investment in infrastructure in the area. And you can look at several successes that we've had. What it didn't necessarily do was link all the modes of transportation so that we could invest in those multimodal opportunities that might be coming down the line as freight becomes a greater part of the overall economy. So
I understand that your group has recently done a survey of all the transportation modes in the St. Louis area in order to determine what's available, what's not, what needs to be improved.
One of the things that we're doing, we've initiated a survey where it's in the formative stages now. They're collecting qualitative data, or quantitative data and qualitative interview comments on providers in the area and those outside the area to determine what our competitiveness as a region is with respect to, say, our peers. That would be Kansas City, Memphis, Indianapolis, Columbus, and like that. We're expecting that study early fall to see where we sit and what improvements we might be able to make to improve our competitiveness, and on the other hand, what strengths do we have that we can promote.
Mm-hmm. Now this, what was it called, the St. Louis Gateway?
Yes.
This is some sort of a branding mechanism for the St. Louis area, so that you can use this as a method of going to businesses outside the St. Louis area and say, hey, here's what we have to offer in the St. Louis area. Is Is that essentially correct?
That is correct. The St. Louis Regional Chamber and Leadership Council work cooperatively to establish stlouisgateway.com as a resource or a website for those that are interested in primarily site selectors and other people involved in looking at areas for logistics and distribution support. We present information on all modes of transportation, and while it's in its early stages, there's a lot of resources for professionals like that.
Do other areas have this sort of taking stock of their, what am I asking? Are other areas doing this, or have they already done this and are prepared to have businesses move into their area in multimodal transportation?
We're seeing more and more of that. I know Kansas City has the KC Smartport. That's an organization that's done very well in organizing their freight and logistics investment opportunities and freight movement activities. Memphis has something similar. Same thing could be said for Columbus. But
Columbus is a big transportation center.
It is. And that's where we want to make sure that we're positioned in the dialogue. We have some competitive advantages relative to those other areas.
What are those advantages?
Well, particularly the Mississippi River. If you look at the amount of bulk material that's handled on the Mississippi, it far outstrips any of those other communities with which we frequently compete. The opportunity for barge on container, container on barge, I'm sorry, transport represents some opportunities too. Having the river available to us, which is why we're here predominantly anyway,
yes.
Gives us an advantage that other areas might not have. And so that's what we're looking at from the study. How do we compare from that, and what information might be suitable for distribution as a result of that study?
Mm-hmm. We've had Dennis Wilmshire here on several occasions. He is the, I think, called the director of America's
Central Port.
Thank you. America's. I just noticed the Port District, but America's Central Port, which is Granite City, which is actually the old Mel Price Army Center. Mm-hmm. And while he was here, he was telling us that the Chinese are in the process of redoing the Panama Canal or adding some extra capacity to it. So there's going to be a whole lot more cargo that's going to be coming from Asia through there into the Gulf. And the idea that he talked about was having some of that cargo, containerized cargo, instead of going to the East Coast and being trucked back into this region, is to have it go to New Orleans, put on barges, and then sent up, hopefully, to St. Louis, and then distributed out from here, because the cost of getting it to the center of the country on barge is cheaper than to get it from the East Coast by a truck or train. Is that essentially what you're trying to accomplish here?
That's one of the modes that would really serve that we would serve well to promote, that sort of connection, and particularly with the opportunity to potentially include commodities that are available here and could be containerized and shipped back. Reducing backhaul costs would make us more attractive too. And that could be, I know the soybean producers are looking at opportunities to containerize some of their product and ship it back, and thereby reduce transportation costs. So that's definitely an opportunity for us.
And are we also looking at finished goods to also be transshipped back down the Mississippi?
There's an opportunity for, one of our region's true strengths is light manufacturing and manufacturing, and we've got a long history of that. The opportunity for us to either look at some level of subassembly or assembly here and transport back is also an opportunity worth looking into. And any way that we can incorporate any of the historical industrial activity into any of the value add to any products that come in here would be really a great resource for our region and for our local economy.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you were a businessman who was looking to either manufacture or distribute, what would be the attractiveness from your point of view of setting up shop in the St. Louis region as opposed to Memphis? Which, of course, that's going to be a big competitor because they're also on the river and more south.
Certainly. And when you look at our region, we've got a competitive workforce. We've got 2 states that we can we work together on a regional basis very well. Sometimes it might not seem that way, but we actually do. And the resources available to the business community from an investment perspective would be really attractive relative to Memphis.
Mm-hmm. So you think that the St. Louis is actually, this is the place to be then?
I would agree with that, yes.
Well, yeah, but what I'm asking is, from a realistic point of view, as opposed to from simply a PR point of view. Obviously from a PR point of view, yeah, we want everybody coming to St. Louis. We want, manufacturing set up here. But from a realistic point of view, can you look at these people who come, they're going to come here, they're going to investigate, they're going to talk to you directly. Are you going to be able to look them in the eye and say, yes, A, B, C, D, and have them go like, okay, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'll buy.
Absolutely, and what we're doing as part of this program is to provide those resources to economic development professionals in the area to actually give them, if you will, artillery for such an effort. So if somebody does pursue them, they can clearly identify competitive advantages relative to other sites and other locations that they'd be looking at. Mm-hmm. That would be much appreciated within the economic development community. And
what would be?
The additional information, the results of the studies that we're doing, and the regional promotion that's occurring. One part of it is stlouisgateway.com.
And how do you plan to get people, your target audience, to actually see this St. Louis or stlgateway.com and actually get in there and look at it?
Regional Chamber is actively involved in promoting the area. They have 4 basic pillars that they're promoting within their organization: the financial services industry, healthcare services, biotechnology, and multimodal logistics and manufacturing. Mm-hmm. stlouisgateway.com fits right within that, and that's why we cooperated with them to develop that tool. And they're involved in marketing and promotion of the area, and that is very useful for them. They get involved with site selectors very early on, and this is one way that we can communicate with them. Part of the freight district that's being stood up now, one of the components of the freight district will be not only advocacy and marketing and promotion, but it's making sure that those tools are all integrated within the support organizations that are involved with the freight district.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be clear, this freight district doesn't exist at this moment, does it?
That's correct.
This is something that is being worked on.
Correct.
What will it look like when it is done?
The freight district will be an agency that coordinates bi-state efforts related to freight movement and any sort of infrastructure improvements within our region. It'll look similar to some of the other bi-state organizations, such as, bi-state mm-hmm. Development Agency, where the freight district will actually sit. East-West Gateway is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. They work over, they work over I think it's 7 counties plus the city of St. Louis to organize our efforts in implementing the federal transportation or the 5-year transportation plan. So that's the way that organization would look and would function. They would be responsible for coordinating any efforts on, again, moving product from water to rail, rail to truck, truck to truck, and improving the intermodal connections that we would have within the St. Louis region.
So it sounds like you're saying that the various modes are all going to be like, this is like the UN of all these freight modes then, and they're going to have some cognizance over all of this?
Yes, one of the results of the study that AECOM did for East-West Gateway in 2013 was that would would serve us well as a region if we were to act deliberately with respect to some of the improvements that we made to freight, as opposed to accidental or opportunistic situations that developed. Freight District would actually do that. They would oversee that and make sure that there's a continued effort over a period of years to make the connections that influence the efficiency and effectiveness of our freight network.
Mm-hmm. Now, is the Freight District, or who is going to be looking into the various bottlenecks that already exist? And I've done some research on that. You know, I'm always doing research before I have a guest like you come, and I know something about transportation. And I know that we talk about these, these Class 1 railroad lines that are running through the area, but yet there seems to be some bottlenecks, which, of course, slows down the progress of moving goods, right? So are we working on trying to solve those problems so that when people come here to look at the St. Louis area, you can say to them, well, yeah, that's a problem, but we're already working on it?
Correct. And when talking about the agency being intentional, that's a great example of their greatest benefit, would be coordinating and prioritizing the efforts that were best positioned for state and federal funds to reduce the amount of bottlenecks that our area faces with the growing amount of freight that's anticipated. So you would be able to go to the agency and identify their priority list in terms of investments and in terms of being able to reduce the number of bottlenecks and improve freight flow here.
Of course, it is the railroads themselves that need to be lobbied to say, hey, look at this problem here, look at that, we need to expand our tracking here. So it is the railroads that do have to be cooperative, don't they?
They do, and we expect them to be. So far, we've gotten, particularly within the site committee, we've gotten great response, and their cooperativeness has been absolutely fantastic.
Well, it's in their interest. They're going to make money off of transporting all this stuff.
When we also give them a voice, and instead of lobbying on their own, there are some other outside economic development interests that are actually seeking their input. So that represents a different opportunity for them to communicate their message. When on the site committee, we have Mike McCarthy, who's the head of the Terminal Railroad, and we have, he basically carries in the interests of the railroad to our discussions and always presents the railroad's aspects of any of the improvements that we would be looking at.
And is he hopeful that these
very
things can be taken care of?
Very helpful. I get one just brief aside on the study that's currently being performed by Train Systems. They actually went out and met with Union Pacific out in Omaha and got favorable responses about what we're trying to accomplish in the area, and we're looking at opportunities to look at the St. Louis area and see where they could invest and identify those bottlenecks that we as a region might be able to help them address.
So now that was railroad, but now we turn to interstate highways, of which there are 4 listed coming through our area, and yet there's some difficulties there with traffic because the highways are starting to get old and they're in need of repair. Are there things being done between MoDOT and IDOT to make Interstate 70, 44, 55 more truck friendly?
There are. One of the aspects that we need to share with MoDOT and IDOT are the specific improvements that might be advantageous from users, particularly warehouse distribution and logistics, that I don't know that that's been shared yet, other than on an individual basis or a per carrier basis.
Well, do MoDOT and IDOT have a voice in this group that you are working with?
They certainly do through East-West Gateway, which is part of the Freight District and the Freight District Cooperative. We have representatives from the trucking industry within site, and they would be participating, and any of that feedback would also work its way through the system. So all of those modes are actually interconnected between the multimodal logistics group at Regional Chamber, the site committee within Leadership Council, and then all of those parties are participating in the development of the Freight District. So that those voices are heard, and it will actually be heard on a louder basis.
I mean, you and I and the people who are in the industry understand that the faster product moves, the less stops that it makes, the less that it costs to actually deliver it. And so therefore the end users get it at a cheaper price. The longer it takes to get there, the more stops that it has to make, the more it costs at the grocery store or at the manufacturing plant where they're receiving raw materials. That's the whole point of what we're saying here, to the public that's listening to this. I'm sure that the people in the industry understand that, though.
We do. We want to see improvements in efficiency that would also improve our environmental air quality, which it's just always been an issue in St. Louis, and an improvement in safety. A lot of times trucks are forced to go on routes that are congested, and they add to the congestion and issues related to just commuters. And in terms of the public, that's what they might see as a benefit from the establishment of the freight district. We might be able to actually better manage the freight flow through the area to reduce the negative impacts that our system might present it with the increased traffic flow that we would be seeing.
Mm-hmm. Interstate 70, not just in the St. Louis area, but from St. Louis all the way back to Columbus, is just one big truck route, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, if you've recently driven on that road, I mean, there's like hundreds of trucks just that you'll pass just between here and Columbus, Ohio, or going out towards Denver. It's just an enormous truck route, and it needs to be maintained.
It not only needs to be maintained, but the capacity needs to be enhanced and increased. Its durability needs to be improved. There's some real challenges ahead, and what we're always advocating for would be a long-term sustainable federal transportation plan to oversee the improvement to the interstate system, even maintenance at this point. So. Mm-hmm. There's several within the industry that are constantly and persistently advocating for that, and this region would stand to benefit from those improvements and a long-term funding plan for sure.
And is there hope that soon Congress may actually have a usable and workable transportation plan?
Hope springs eternal.
That's a bad sign, right? When you say it like that, it's like.
We understand there's efforts in Congress. Last fall, the current plan, which is the acronym is MAP 21, was extended through the end of May. Mm-hmm. We hope that there's a long-term funding plan in place. There are a lot of behind-the-scenes efforts to do such or create such a long-term funding plan, and we'll find out soon. Hopefully that it'll be, short-term extensions don't help anybody in terms of planning, because it takes a number of years to plan major improvements to highways and bridges. If we only look at stopgap funding for a period of years, long-term planning becomes a real challenge. Mm-hmm. In terms of making sure those long-term plans are reality. And that's what the federal government is supposed to do, is help with interstate commerce.
And of course the Mississippi River is part of that too. And as I said in the introduction, the St. Louis is right at the north edge of the Mississippi River before it gets to the very first lock. Mm-hmm. So that basically barges can travel all the way from here all the way to the Gulf of Mexico without going through one barge, and for a large part of the year ice-free.
Clearly our competitive advantage is the river. I know that there have been stories from other communities upstream from us, whether they be Omaha, Des Moines, other locations, that look at us as a vital link to their economy based on the commodities and the agricultural economy in particular, and the commodities that flow through here. It always has been that way. You look at the amount of coal, the amount of aggregate that flows down the river. It's an incredibly vital part of our economy. If we can take advantage of that and stress the importance to those outside the area and tell the good story, I think that would bode well for future economic investment.
And St. Louis has improved its port. There's several port facilities in the St. Louis region now, and they have been improving their capacity, haven't they?
They have been, and there's an excellent group called the Port Working Group that coordinates their efforts and applications for federal funding to improve their facilities. The St. Louis ports just went through some recent renovations. You talked about America's Central Port had significant investment recently on their South Harbor project. Bunge had recent investment on the east side of the river for their facility. There's another coal handling facility called American Millings, and that's a major investment just south. It's in the Sauget area. And those are all, you know, the last two are private investment that don't receive a lot of public attention, yet there's a lot of impact to our local economy. And
but it's in their self-interest, right?
It is, but there's also, if we could coordinate our efforts, for instance, there's a significant amount of truck traffic related to grain handling on River Park Drive. I forget what the average daily truck count is, but it is significant. And those improvements now need to be made after the facility is in place. We would like to get out ahead of that and make those improvements ahead of the construction of those facilities, or at least enhance the timing of that so that the construction of any of those roadway improvements doesn't adversely affect the operation of the facility or drive up the cost of the improvements.
Here we are in the last minute or two of the show. I mean, time goes by like really fast here. Is there something we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure that you said before the end?
I guess one of the things that we would want the public to keep an eye out for is what the Freight District can do for them. If we look at the ability to coordinate our efforts, whether it's clustering around the activities that we do really well, if we can work together to enhance our capacity in the region, we'll look to grow jobs as a result of this. And that's truly what this effort is all about, is positioning ourselves, our resources, our reusing available industrial lands or repurposing industrial lands for facilities that will support more jobs in the future. That's what we want to accomplish with this effort.
And we're well underway. I mean, this is not, you're not like here in the last 30 seconds, we're not in the starting mode. You're well underway on this project.
We are well underway. There will be more information coming out very, very soon, but we've made a lot of progress in a period of a couple of years, and we look for great things to come.
And so for people, they need to go to this www.stlgateway.com, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's information there now for them?
There is.
And there will be even more information in the near future.
That site will be updated regularly and will be a good resource for economic development professionals and others to see what's going on.
Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And I've been speaking with Mark Harms. Well, you heard this whole thing. He's with the Leadership Council of Illinois Transportation Enhancement Initiative. St. Louis is in the process of perhaps becoming a very, very central place for the movement of and for the light manufacturing of product. And that could mean a lot more jobs in St. Louis. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll see you next time.